Thanks, Mike. Good evening. I'm Jog Dhody. I'm the CFO of Regenersis. We're not in the medical field, so we're in a very different industry, and we're in a very different point in our growth cycle than the two businesses you've just seen. I've been with the business 2.5 years, and I'm going to talk you through our final results and a little bit about what the business does. A number of you I do recognize from previous presentations, but there's also many new faces, so I'll cover some of the basics as well. So this is a sample of the products that we look after, and our core business is repairing these devices. So we'll repair mobile phones, laptops, desktops, set-top boxes, TVs, laptops, and we do this in many countries around the world. These are our clients, all names that you would know. What do I like about our business is that all our clients are multi-billion-dollar businesses growing very quickly. The proliferation of electronic devices in the world continues to grow. You know, you're well aware that you go on the tube today or the train and everyone's got a mobile phone, a laptop and an iPad. What we focused our business on doing is tapping that growth, and particularly we focused on partnering with companies like this. They're all in many countries. And I'll talk to you in a second about how we've grown our business. We started the business has been going 17 years. I've been here 3 years. It started in the UK. When I joined 3.5 years ago, we were in 5 countries. Today, we're in 15 countries, and we've grown to all the points on the map, which are green. There's lots more growing room you can do. There's still bits on there which are great. Why we focused on growing internationally is because this graph sort of illustrates that. There's lots of growth in devices in the emerging markets. So this just gives you an example here of how many devices there are in the USA each year being sold in 2013 and how that's going to grow in 2017. It looks exciting. That's even more exciting though, India. So India's got 1 billion people, and all of those people in India are now wanting to have smartphones. They're now wanting to have iPads and laptops. And what's going to happen is, and this is not our data, this is data coming from IDC, which is an independent research organization. They're saying the Indian mobile phone market will be bigger than the US market in 4 years' time. Well, that's phenomenal. Guess what? We have a business in India where we repair laptops, desktops, and mobile phones. So when you have a market that's growing each year by 40 or 50%, that gives us lots of growth. The more laptops out there, the more mobile phones out there, the more of them need repairing. So we focus our growth on emerging markets, and over the last 3.5 years, we've grown into Mexico, Argentina, India, South Africa, Russia, all the sort of main BRIC countries. A lot of people come and ask me, sort of, don't mobile phones just get thrown away? They must be quite cheap. Well, they're not quite cheap. This is some data here, again, independent source, just showing what's happened to mobile phone device prices, and they haven't gone cheaper, basically. They're not throwaway devices, and they do need repairing. What's also very exciting for us is that the market continues to grow each year. So when you're looking at a business, what do I look at? I look at, well, is there an underlying growing market? And I think there is. As a result, we focused, I'll skip this slide. So this is our different business units that we've got. We started in electronic repair. We've got our own mobile phone insurance business. We launched that in Poland several years ago. We've got a diagnostics business, and this is diagnosing, and we haven't got time to talk about it today, but those businesses around diagnosing what's wrong with the device and then repairing them. And most recently, we've gone into software. So this part of the business is all hardware driven. What we've realized is that not only is the mobile phone in your pocket valuable because it's 400 euros, and when it breaks, you want it repaired, and you want it repaired quickly. What's more valuable is the data on that device. On my mobile phone, I can control my heating, I can control my garage door, I control my hi-fi, I can do banking, I can buy stuff off Amazon. It's got all my contacts and all my calendar. It's very valuable data to someone that wants to do some ID theft or things like that. So what we've realized is the data on the device is actually becoming more and more valuable. And the cancer of the IT industry is in fact data being stolen and remarketed and sold and ID theft. So that's why we bought a business called Blanco, and I'm going to talk about that now. This is our track record for the last 4 years, and all the graphs are going up in the right direction, the profits are good, and the margins are all good on them. We're quite a bit bigger businesses than the other businesses that you've seen earlier today. Our revenue is sort of 200 million, and these are our results for June, and you can see all the numbers are going up in the right direction. And this is the software business. So the clients here are different. The clients here are some of these names on the right-hand side. So what does Blanco do? Blanco is one of our subsidiaries. So if you've got a laptop, a mobile phone, a desktop, whatever, and you've got data on it and you want it erased, just pressing erase and putting the data in your recycle bin doesn't delete it. Okay? We can recover that. Anyone can recover that. If you have a mobile phone, and many of you will have iPhones, just pressing factory reset doesn't actually delete the data. We can give you examples where you can get an app on the internet and recover all of that data for $20. That doesn't actually erase the data. What Blanco provides is certified data erasure, and it is the only company in the world that can do this properly. It is the market leader. It's still small, but it's still a market leader, and that's because the market's growing. And how do I know it's the market leader? Well, it's got the biggest revenue out of all the players in the industry doing it, and I can tell by its customer base. So if you've got data and it's sensitive and you're serious about erasing it, you kind of have to use Blanco. It is the Rolls-Royce product. I mean, companies that we work for, and I'll give you some more case studies in a minute. NASA, NATO, Buckingham Palace, KPMG Global, Dresdner Bank. These are the client base, and these guys are serious about data erasure. Why are they serious about it? Well, they've got corporate secrets. They have consumer data that if they get stolen is dangerous. They've got designs and things like that. So these corporates are all very serious about it. And why do they buy Blanco? Because it is the best product in the world. So in the same way that you've heard about in the medical profession, there's sort of organizations out there certifying things. There's equivalent organizations in the IT industry that certify Blanco being adequate to do a certified data erasure. So these are some of the certifications that Blanco has. So these are third-party organizations, and in the UK, it's the Data Protection Registrar. They will certify, and they have certified Blanco as being the right product to use if you're a corporate and want to erase your data. And these accreditations exist in many countries around the world, and Blanco's got a total of 200. These accreditations have taken Blanco 17 years to assemble. You have to go through an approval process, you have to invest money, have your processes documented, and these are what gives Blanco a competitive advantage that's sustainable in this marketplace, because it's got more accreditations out of any of the competitors in this industry. This is an example of how Blanco would get used by a particular customer. So this would be an asset recycling customer or an asset repair company. So they would have laptops lined up that they've bought back from, think of a KPMG or something, that they're looking to recycle. They'll install Blanco, they'll erase the laptop, and then that asset can then go out and be recycled and resold in a secondary market. And we'll give that customer a certificate to say, without fail, we know that Blanco's erased this data. So that's one example. So this is about 50% of Blanco's revenue. And then corporates are the other 50% of the Blanco revenue. So for example, BMW, they had a bunch of laptops with lots of data on across their North American business, and they wanted to use Blanco to ensure that new car designs, consumer data got erased, so they used a Blanco product. NASA, again, is another client. I can't tell you exactly what we do for them because we signed confidentiality agreements, but they use our product to erase data as they go along rather than storing it. And this is what you get when you use the Blanco product. You get an erasure report. But why is this important? Well, we can give you some examples. Think Ashley Madison, but I've read about it. So this is a company that had a bunch of consumer data. That data got stolen, and now they're facing a $3 billion fine. And that company will be, struggling with that. And the easiest way to manage your data leaks and your hacks is to delete data when you don't need it anymore. And there's been so many of these breaches, and we can, again, there's other examples in the US. There was Target, Sony have just lost a bunch of data. I think TalkTalk in the UK has been hacked and a bunch of data got stolen. If they'd have used the Blanco product and deleted the data that they didn't need rather than holding it forever, that would have reduced the damage. Now, our job is not to prevent hacks. That's firewall companies' jobs. That's security companies' job. That's not our job. Our job is to provide those clients of ours a tool to erase the unnecessary data and reduce the impact of this sort of stuff when it happens. And the reason that this is becoming increasingly important is because you and me as consumers find it unacceptable for companies to lose our data now. So there's lots of consumer demand driving our clients to say, we want a range of tools available to us to erase data and manage data and prevent hacks. And Blanco is one of the sort of 10 things that they can do, erase the data when you don't need it. The second thing that's driving big demand for our product is there's some new legislation coming out in Europe. It goes live in 12 days in Europe. It's a new data protection legislation. It's been signed off in Brussels, and then EU member states have 2 years to implement it. It's very serious legislation. What it says is, if you're a corporate or a government organization and you hold consumer data and you lose it, and this is an endemic problem because you're not managing this data properly, we'll fine you. And we'll fine you 5% of your global revenue. That's quite a big number. If you're Vodafone's one of our customers, and you've got 60 billion of revenue globally, a 5% fine's a pretty large number. So suddenly corporates, and I'm not going to mention any specific names, but our corporate customers and potential customers are waking up to us and go, actually, we've got so much at stake now, we have to start doing this process properly, and we have to start being ready to apply this new data protection legislation. And what it says is you've got to have a data protection officer. You have got to have proper procedures for collecting data, storing it, managing it, and erasing it. If you screw up and you lose data, you've got to self-declare that to the local data protection agency. And particularly, you need to have documented procedures, and this is relevant for us, have documented procedures about how you erase that data at the end of its life. I think this new legislation, and it says it will go live in 2 years' time in EU member states, is a real bonus for Blanco. I think it's going to drive lots of demand from our corporate customers. It already is. And there's a bunch of data here about how this part of the business is performing. I won't sort of dwell on all the numbers on it, but I just want to tell you how our business is growing. It's growing very quickly. So this part of the business did 11.5 million sterling revenue last year, and it did 16.2 million into June 15. It grew at 40%. And the legislation isn't even live yet. So the consumer demand for this is driving clients to come to us and buy this software. I think this new legislation is going to push these growth rates up even further. What do I think is really good about this part of the business? Look at the profit margin we make, it's 38%. How many businesses are growing up 40% top line and doing 38% margin and it's all very cash generative, very exciting business. So in terms of conclusions and outlooks, trading in line. Our budget for 2016 asks for growth. I'm not going to quote the numbers. You can have a look at that in the analyst reports, and they'll be in the pack that you get. We're on track to deliver that. And that's it. So I'm going to turn over to questions.
Questions, anybody? Gentleman here.
What are your plans going forward? Because I sort of vaguely read that you're going to sell part of the business and focus on the software. Is that right?
That's absolutely right. And I didn't want to complicate the presentation, but seeing as you've asked it, I'll talk about it. So I spent most of the presentation talking about the software business. That's going to be our go-forward business. The original hardware business that I talked about in repairing devices, we actually put up for sale. We announced that in 23rd of September, that we're going through an auction process. I've told the market that we expect to dispose of that for between 60 and 80 million pounds and be done by March 16. And we're on track at the moment. So I can't say anything more than that. And that will leave us as a pure play software business, and that's why I focused on discussing Blanco.
Next question. Can I ask what's that's part of, why are you selling the repair business, which has been obviously your main business focus up till now?
Yeah, I think, I mean, we didn't have a software business until about 2 years ago. We've got a software business and a hardware business now, and our shareholders have said to us, well, we're actually a bit confused about what you guys are doing. Are you a hardware business or you a software business? They're different businesses, they're managed in a different way, they have a different growth profile. And are there real synergies for having these two businesses together? And I think those synergies were very strong initially, lots of cross-selling of work. I don't think those synergies are going to last forever. And in an effort to simplify the message to our shareholders, we want to focus on doing one thing. And as a board, we've suggested that that should be software only.
Okay. Thank you.
Could I ask who your competitors are, firstly? And secondly, do you know what scale of business you have to be impacted by the EU legislation that you mentioned?
Okay, so we've got 5 different business units. So the competitors are different for each business unit. If you're asking about the software business, the Blanco was the number 1 player globally in terms of revenue. The number 2 player was Tabanus. They were based in the US. We just bought them in September. The number 3 player was Kroll, which is the forensics business. And in April 15, they decided to stop selling their product and sell our product instead. So we've taken out with the top 3 now. And the number 4 player has about $1 million of revenue. So I don't really think we've got any competitors, to be honest with you. In terms of what scale of organization do you have to be impacted by the EU legislation, there's no minimum revenue limit, and that's one of the changes with this legislation. If you hold consumer data, that's it. You have to apply this legislation, and that is whether you're a corporate or indeed a government organization. So this new legislation would apply to banks, any corporate, councils, hospitals, any organization holding data. So it's a pretty serious piece of legislation. Thank you for your question.
Jill, can I ask you a question, please? I was just going to say, interesting presentation. When you talk about TalkTalk being impacted, and then you talk about deleting existing customer information, I was just trying to get my head around the fact that you've still got to store that information because that's your customer database, but you're saying Blanco deletes everything on the system. Yeah, as I articulated, we can't provide a full suite of security software. That's not our job. If you need a firewall to protect, and I'm not a security expert, I'm a finance guy, but there's a variety of companies and a variety of suite of services out there, like firewalls, like encryption, etc. And Blanco is one of the 10 or 15 things you should be doing as part of this new legislation, which is when you don't need the data, delete it. And if you delete the unnecessary data that you don't need to hold, so you don't need to hold data after 3 years in some industries or 5 years in the banking industry, if you delete data at the right time, it just reduces the extent of the problem when you get hacked. Or if you're changing out your assets, it could be your desktops, your laptops, your servers at the end of their life,
or your employees are walking around with data on their laptops or their iPads, you can use the Blanco software to remotely log in and delete that data. That's pretty helpful.
Thank you.
Gentleman down here.
When you sell your legacy business, what,
Yeah.
what are you intending to do with the proceeds? Are you going to pay out a dividend or tender offer or invest it?
So what we've said to shareholders already is we first of all need to retire our revolving loan facility with HSBC, which is probably 15 or 20 million, and then the balance of the proceeds will look to return to shareholders by means of a tender offer. So the majority of funds will come back to shareholders.
I thought you said you were going to retire with all that money. Any other questions, anybody? Gentleman over there.
I looked up erasure software on the internet just before I came here, and I found at least 5 free programs to delete data to DoD specifications by overwriting it multiple times. Why is there a business here? You know, what is good about your product?
It's a really good question. So I get asked this a lot. So why can't we just use freeware software? Well, freeware software isn't accredited. It doesn't matter what they say. They don't have the accreditations that we have, first of all. Second of all, there's actually no audit record at the end of the erasure on the freeware software. I showed you that audit certificate. It's an encrypted audit certificate that we keep forever. If you're, the CIO of a corporate, and you sell your desktops, your laptops, and you get a claim, you don't really want to be saying to the investigator, I used the freeware software to delete the data. You want to say, I used the market-leading software with the most accreditations, and guess what? Here's an audit certificate from Blanco that lasts forever, that we store forever in our server, that says we guarantee that this software deleted the data on this laptop. So that's the third thing. The fourth thing is we actually own the largest freeware site for you to download as a consumer if you want to use freeware. It's called dban. We get 100,000 downloads a month. So go and have a look at it. It's dban.org.uk. And that is the one that comes up the most on the searches, and that's our software actually.
Gentleman at the very back.
Hi there. Just a quick question. What happens if a company goes into liquidation or / administration? Who pays for the erasing of their equipment, per se, for a sort of a large organization, corporate of that such nature?
Okay. We provide a bunch of software to the customers, and we don't provide the service. We provide a bunch of software, not dissimilar to Microsoft or something. So our software, we've done our job when we've delivered the software at that point. So it's not a service, it's a pure software delivery.
Any other questions, anybody? No.
Okay, thank you. Good evening.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you.